This is John Tima Tihlo Hlengweni News, Tihlo Hlengweni News FM. Today we're hosting Mr. Radical Dr. Mishi. Before I go any further, welcome Dr. Mishi.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mishi. Can you please introduce yourself before we get into our today's topic?
My name is Misha Gezan, and I come from Chilonga, in Chirezi, under Masingo province, and of course in Zimbabwe. So yeah, I did my primary and secondary education there, and yeah, that's me.
All right, Mr. Gesani, thank you very much. Welcome to Tihlo Hlengweni News. We have a couple of questions from our listeners who have been asking us since the day you launched your party ZNC. So I have a couple of questions here. Some of the questions, we have one of our listeners who said, ask Mr. President, how do the people at home, they mean the people in Zimbabwe, how do they feel about ZNC?
Thank you for the question. Well, the people at home, judging by the feedback that we've been receiving so far, because remember that we launched our organization online, so we're trying to gauge how the people are going to respond to the message, because we believed in the power of the message that we have been trying to convey. So, judging by the response from the people, well, it has been very positive, and people are excited to have such an organization like ZNC. And they are, of course, very optimistic, and we are excited with their response.
All right. Thank you very much. And then we have another question. Since you launched the party, some of the people, they had to ask and argue in our social media platforms. The people who are saying, Mr. Gizani, you are a ZANU-PF project, or a ZNC is the part of ZANU-PF. How can you clear the air? How can you give answers actually to the people who have been asking this question?
Well, it's a very exciting question, of course, because I do not know where it is emanating from, because I've never been to ZANU-PF, I've never participated in any ZANU-PF meeting, or have ever been registered in any of the ZANU-PF books or branches or whatsoever. So I do not know where that is coming from, but what I can say is that it has of course become a culture in Zimbabwe where it says that there are only two sides in terms of politics. There is no way that one cannot cannot have a different perspective of the situation in your country. So I think that's where the confusion is coming from, because whenever you have to argue with this kind of people, from the people from one group, then they'll accuse of belonging on the other side. When you talk with the people from the other side, are also accused of belonging to the other side, because there is all that confusion, because there have already been this common narrative of saying that there is only two sides in Zimbabwe. But of course, like I said, that I've never been into any of the ZANU-PF books or meetings. So what I can say is that I would like people to judge me with what ZANU-PF had provided. Even if I would say that, let's assume that I was in ZANU-PF, but today I belong to ZNC, I think that people must look at it from that perspective, to say that now we have ZNC that have been launched, which has become a political party on its own. I do not think that it is logical to argue that a certain political party is part of another political party, having a political party, creating another political party for itself. I don't know how logical is that, some of the people, but I think that it's just a lack, some kind of reasoning behind that, such an argument.
But Mr. Gezani, listen to me very carefully. The people, they say they've been engaging with you in different platforms on social media, and then according to your response and your answers, you were so defensive to ZANU-PF, and that's why they said you are the ZANU-PF project.
Well, like I said, that I do not understand where that emanated from, but what I can say is
they said this comes from the argument that we've been making with them.
It is, of course, a misinterpreted argument, if I have to put it that way, because if anyone thinks that I will come from ZANU-PF, because when I argued with the ZANU-PF, they accused me of belonging to the opposition or to other political organizations that are existing, which I don't know. I don't want to go through those names. So I understand when people raise such, when people have such conclusions regarding the arguments that we are having, because the arguments that I was presenting that represented the ideology that I harbored at the time did not resonate with any of the existing political organization, which was easier for each side to pick it and accuse it of belonging to the other side as long as it doesn't resonate
All
with
right,
their own
well,
organization.
okay. Otherwise, it will take a long time. But okay, my question is, you can just give me yes or no. Are you a ZANU-PF project?
Definitely no. I'm
All
I'm a
right.
ZNC project.
You are a ZNC project. Okay, thank you very much. And then we still have more questions here regarding by-elections or general elections. Let's say if tomorrow we wake up having by-elections in Zimbabwe, is your party ready to contest by-elections?
If it were to happen in the manner in which you put it, of course, I think that our response to that regard will be also in the same manner. So I would like to say yes, we will be contesting for elections, even if they were to be declared tomorrow.
And then is your party Zimbabwe National Congress registered?
Yes, it is registered according to the constitution of our country.
All right, and then I will have the question that the people also are. It's just a general question in Zimbabwe. We know that Zimbabwe is the country where we hear mostly about the sanctions. What's your take on sanctions in Zimbabwe?
Look, the issue of sanctions is so deep and very complex, and I'll answer it in this way, that I would like to say to begin with that I accept and I acknowledge that our country has been severely affected by the sanctions and they had a significant impact. But I want to say this, that look, sanctions only works in an environment where there is poor leadership. Um, the reason sanctions were able to work and be able to destroy our economy because we did not have competent leadership that should have foresaw the possibility of having sanctions and the possible a significant impact of those sanctions, which means that sanctions could have, the preparations could have been done, and of course the impact and the of sanctions could have been minimized by the political wisdom that our leaders would have harbored at the time. Because we can give an endless list of other countries that have been able to survive and sustain their economies under sanctions. So the reason we could not sustain our economy under sanctions is because we did not have competent leadership that could have done proper political, that with proper political knowledge to understand what sanctions are and how they're going to work. Because remember that before the sanctions were imposed, we had leaders who were parroting around telling us that no, we don't care if they impose sanctions, we don't own their country, so we are going to survive with sanctions. But after being imposed the sanction, they started crying, complaining about about the effect of sanctions. So which means that everything that was said, they did not mean anything. They did not actually prepare our country and our economy to be able to deal with the possible effect of sanctions. So I blame all that back to the incompetence of the leadership that we had at the time. Otherwise, the reasons those sanctions were imposed could have been avoided if they knew that they did not have what it takes to be able to deal with the possible effects of sanctions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shandale. And then, in the past few years, we had problems in Zimbabwe about the land, where the government was accused of grabbing the land from rural areas. And then we also have the land issue from your place, the Chitakataka issue. And then what's your take on the Chitakataka issue? And then also the way the land was shared or distributed among the individuals, among the war vets, and the just general people around Tichy and also around the country.
Well, the issue of land is very deep, and it is of course it's one of the biggest challenges that we are failing to deal with. That I believe that should have been addressed a long time ago. But the reason we are still talking about the land issue today is because of the reluctance of ZANU-PF to deal with some colonial, some colonial laws, if I have to put it that way. Because the main issue here is that if you were to go back to the laws that are actually having problems in our country regarding land ownership are very archaic laws. Such laws that were enacted in 1983, which of course we can connect to the same laws back to the 1960s of the colonial laws. So we don't know why are we still having laws that are actually depriving people of the land. Because if we are to say that what was the reason, because when we were asking them, because remember, we did not fight the struggle, they did, and they told us the reason they fought for the liberation was for the land. So why are we still talking for the land today if they went to war for the land? Why are people still not having land? So what was the reason for going into for fighting the liberation struggle if they were not going to get land afterwards? So we have that challenge of saying that we're still having to deal with the colonial traits that ZANU-PF is still harboring, and some colonial laws that ZANU-PF is still pushing. And so I think that we need to reform our constitution. Our laws need to be reformed so that they resonate with the time. Because for today to continue, using, for example, the 1983 laws when we are having a 2013 constitution, of course there's going to be a discord between the two. Because the other law is an old law and the other one is the new law. So how then are we going to match the two to be able to work together? So that's what needs to be done. It's all about reforming the law so that people can start owning land. So when it comes to issue of Chitaka, that is the bottom line, and that is the basic issue that is affecting us. We have to deal with the law, making sure that we create and enact laws that are going to give land to the people.
All right, and thank you. And then we have the issues of war vet and traditional leadership in rural areas who are crying day and night. They said, yes, we've seen the land has been shared, and then they, for example, in Chirezi, we have what we call Kilimanjaro project, where the land was given to some of the people, but we still have the vet and traditional leadership who are crying, who are saying that no, we didn't get our share, we didn't get anything, we are struggling in the country. So you as ZNC, what's your take on traditional leaderships and also the war vets who are struggling in the country up from 1980 up to date?
The issue of war veterans is so saddening, and we are, of course, all not happy with the situation in our country. I would like to link the war veterans and the traditional leadership together, because remember that the war vets were the children of the communities that were sent to war in order to fight for the liberation and emancipation of those same communities. So these communities sacrifice their children, they sacrifice their brothers, sisters, and their mothers to go and fight for the liberation. And of course, it was the responsibility of traditional leaders to make sure that they motivate those communities to be able to contribute in the struggle for liberation. So for us to get to a point where we are having this discussion today, 40 plus years down the line, where the same people have not been taken care of, it's so disheartening. And I would like to say that the government of Zimbabwe failed to address that problem. The war veterans should have been given their place a long time ago. We shouldn't be talking about this by today. We should be talking about other things that have to do with the development and other things, knowing that we have taken care of that. And of course, the reason the traditional leaders fought for their liberation was because of how the system threatened their powers and their ability to survive as true Africans, as true Zimbabweans. So they saw a need to be able to stand up and fight the system. So for them today to still be denied the right to exist and be able to do and exercise their traditional values and respect their traditional principles is still, we don't understand how we're still here, because that should have been addressed a long time ago. So we'd like to say that as ZNC, as we have proposed that our organization is going to work on transforming our politics to make sure that everyone is accommodated and the wills of the people and the true democracy is exercised. We are quite certain and optimistic that we will be able to address that problem once and for all.
All right, thank you. And then what's your take about the Chitaka issue in Chirezi?
Well, yes, like I said, that Chitaka is one of the examples among many that, of course, are happening in our country. So, I can answer that because specifically that's the area that I actually come from. So, yeah, you see, the issue of Chitaka should be dealt with, and I think that we have to be careful. The government also have to be careful on how they approach the land issue, because that land belongs to the people. That's the land that people fought for, and that's what people identifies with, and it is part of the people's identity. Taking away that land is depriving people of their identities, taking away the people's identity and their right to live as indigenous people. So we are saying as ZNC that we're not going to allow that to happen. So we're going to make sure that that does not happen and our land is protected. And I say our land because it is of course our land. And that's the reason our brothers, our mothers and our sisters died in the liberation struggle, to make sure that they give us the right to own that land. So Chakataka is for the people, Chakataka it belongs to the people.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have only some few three last questions. Another question about the Zambia SADC demo that we had people talking about a few days ago. Some of the people, they've been asking why the president of ZNCR didn't participate in the demo. I think maybe you might have good answers for those people who've been asking us.
Well, I think the people who participated in Zambia were Zimbabweans. I don't know if the people who participated there belonged to any specific political party. So I don't know how the people knew that the people who participated there did not belong to ZNC, because I believe that it was the people, it was Zimbabweans who participated in that picketing that took place in Zambia. So if people are asking me, probably they wanted to see me in person, but I believe that I was there because I was represented by the people who were in Zambia on the day.
All right. And then also about the Shillonga Bridge, with the bridge in Shillonga and Chirezi South, where we've seen a lot of people dying there. Almost 20 people died, and then we've seen nothing happening from the government. And then you as ZNC, what your take on the Shillonga issue, Shillonga Bridge issue?
Well, of course, that we put that under the underdevelopment of our country. Of course, the carelessness of our country not to look into developing the rural areas. Of course, as you know that as ZNC, we are strongly advocating for the development of rural areas because that is one of the examples that that actually typifies the position of the government in terms of how it is very much reluctant in dealing with the rural development. So, as a ZNC, we are saying that it's not to say that we don't have money to develop rural areas. It's not it's not like that we don't have money to have such proper infrastructure in rural areas, because I can take you through examples of how corruption is taking place in Zimbabwe, how money is being looted, how we're having silly projects that contribute to nothing to the to the well-being and the development of our country. Of course, that are being undertaken by the government. So, of course, we do have a lot of money there in our country to do all these projects, but the government is just not willing. There's no political will to deal with rural development. So, of course, like we always say, that we are going to make sure that there is rural development. We are going to make sure that as Zimbabwean, we start seeing development from the rural areas perspective.
All right, and then also from your area, we had the issues of Sergeant Chaona Gororo. I'm sorry to have a bit of all right. It's not like a joke. Sergeant Chaona Gororo was the sergeant at the Achikompetsi, who has been transferred to Chambuta, Ward 6. What's your take on that? Because he was transferred on the allegations. In fact, not allegations. He was involved in corruption, according to what we had. Even though we don't have the proper evidence about that, but we heard that there was a petition which made Sergeant Chawana Gororo to be transferred from Kompedzi to Chambuta, a police camp. What's your take on that issue?
Firstly, let me applaud the community for being able to stand up and be able to deal with incompetency, to be able to deal with corruption that is happening in the areas. Look, as ZNC, we have not established extensively as to what exactly transpired. We don't have enough information regarding what happened there. So we cannot comment much, but we want to, of course, once again, commend the community for being able to stand up for what they believe was right. In terms of what needed to be done there. So they have taken the decision to make sure that they make their complaints heard, and a decision has been taken thereafter. I'm not sure if they are happy with the decision that has been taken. But speaking from a ZNC's perspective, well, we had not established what exactly transpired, and we don't have much information as to what exactly were allegations about and what did he do, and what then happened to that led to the eventuality of his being transferred.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kesani. I think maybe you might have your 2 or 3 last words before we conclude.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me. And I'd like to say to the people of Zimbabwe that ZNC is here to stay. ZNC is one organization of its kind, and we're hoping that the people of Zimbabwe are going to love it. They're going to like it, and we are here to bring solutions in terms of addressing the problems that are affecting our country. We are going to introduce, actionable plan to the people that need people's support, and moving forward, we're not going to be doing business as usual. We're going to make sure that Zimbabwean politics don't become the same as long as ZNC is there.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our people. Thank you very much, our listeners. Tihlo Hlengweni News is here to stay. If you want to contact us, if you have some comments, you can send us on our WhatsApp. +27718154448 is our number, or you can contact us through our email, mawatsa office online@gmail.com. That's where you can actually contact us for day-to-day business. Thank you very much. Bye.